Hello and welcome back to Mending Masculinity, episode Dose.
That means two.
Yeah, and that also means if you haven't seen episode 1 that you missed something. You know?
That would be episode uno.
Yeah, yeah.
Spanish.
And if you haven't seen it, definitely go and check that out. We got some really interesting topics to discuss with you today. We're excited to dive into. Do want to, just in terms of, I think sometimes it's important we mention things just for the general timeline so that when we go back and look at this later, years later, our children or their children, they realize kind of what was happening at the time. LSU beat last night in an overtime thriller, probably a top 10 game of all time in Brian Kelly's first season, where they all wanted him fired at the beginning of the season. So, kind of a big deal, honestly.
Yeah. Nick Saban thinks all those calls were right.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And so, just to stamp that, with kind of where we are in society as a whole, football is still a thing.
Yeah.
So, today we got some good topics for you coming up, and I think we ought to just dive right into the first topic, dealing with healthy masculinity. How is it that you deal with people that kind of have different value systems than you?
Yep. Thinking about this, one of the things that came to my mind was Jordan Peterson. In his book, 12 Rules of Life, says that whenever you are having a disagreement or talking with somebody, your best option is to repeat what they've said in a way that they agree with. And so something I like to do is I'm going to repeat back what you said to me, right? Like I'm going to try to communicate what you're trying to communicate to you in a way that you would agree with me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of times maybe, especially with people who differ in thought processes and value systems, that there's a misunderstanding there and a miscommunication, and so I want to be very clear about what you're trying to communicate to me. And once I do that, I've noticed a lot of times what I'll do is I will literally repeat what you say until I get it right? Until I figure out what you're trying to communicate. And in that process, first of all, it disarms a lot of people, right? And so now that they understand that I'm trying to understand you, I'm at least putting forth effort into figuring out what you're saying, that disarms them. And so we get rid of all the defensive tactics where they shut down and try not to communicate. And another thing it does for me is another wise man that I've heard. He says nobody cares about what you want to say. What is it? He says
Nobody cares what you say till they know that you care.
Yeah.
That deal.
Yeah. And so to me, once you care about what they say, they'll care about what you're going to communicate.
Yeah, I've seen that to be true through the years. I think that you have to first establish your own motive when you're talking to somebody, especially, and I think that's true across the board. I would say it's especially true when you're dealing with people that have different value systems. When we say different value systems, that may be very broad hearing. What do you mean different value systems? I mean, there are different things that I literally mean you find different things valuable. Yeah, I mean exactly how it sounds. Like, I value my relationship with the Lord. So if I'm talking to someone who doesn't believe God exists, we have very different value systems. We're going to look at the world through a very different lens. I take my physical health very seriously. If I'm talking to somebody who doesn't take care of their physical health, we have very different value systems. I have a wife and children. So when I'm talking to someone who's single, different value systems. So it's not like one, overarching topic. There's tons of different ways that we see the world differently. Even people like you and I who have a lot in common. There's still some things that we value very differently. There's a lot we do. All the big parts we mostly mesh. But there are some smaller things that you and I disagree on, and that's okay.
Right.
You can disagree with people and it still be a good thing.
Yeah.
And so my first thing is you have to establish your motive. Why are you even having this conversation? Because anytime that you are communicating with a person, a motive is established. And if you don't establish your own motive, they will establish one for you. And then you don't get to pick it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so if You go to a movie theater and you're walking into the movie theater and some guy walks up to you and it's like, "Hey man, what's up?" And you just kind of like standing there and, "Hey, how are you doing today?" Yeah, you answer whatever, and then he's like, "Okay, cool, man," and he walks off. The first thing you're gonna do is be like, "Why did he do that?
Yeah.
Why did he come talk to me? What
Right.
was he trying to do? Was he trying to rob me?
Yeah.
Was he trying to? Did he think that he knew who I was? Was he checking out my wife? Like what was the purpose? What he did? Now,
Right.
same exact scenario. Hey man, I'm such and such, and just new here, trying to meet some people. What
Yeah.
How are you? Now he's established a motive. Now I'm not going through the whole
Who is this
questioning
guy?
process because he's at least established a motive. Now, if he does something to contradict what he says, well, then you kind of go back into that process. But for the most part, if you establish your motive and the things that you say stay true to what your initially established motive is,
Yeah.
it sets up a pretty good basis for conversation.
Sure.
And so when you're dealing with people with different value systems, the first thing you have to do is establish a strong motive for why you're having the conversation. Because if you do not, they'll typically take that as his motive is to prove me wrong and try to change my values. And people get very, very defensive
Yeah.
when you do that. And so I think that that's your first thing. Say, "Hey, look, man, I just want to have a conversation with you. I care about you. You
Yeah.
clearly see things through a different lens than I do. And I'd like to understand that a little better."
Yeah.
Which is way different than, "Hey, I care about you. I also think that you're an idiot and that I've got everything figured out.
Right.
And I want to have a conversation with you so that you realize how stupid you are and you can come over to my side."
Right.
Yeah.
I also think with something you're saying, figuring out the why or establishing a motive
Yeah.
is that once you've established a motive, you can be honest. Like you can be honest with them what you think about what they're saying.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people have this like theory that you're there to attack their values. So if you're like, "Hey, I'm not here to change your mind. I'm not here to try to change you as a person. Like I'm just trying to explain to you and communicate to you what I think about this as a person." And I think that is part of establishing a motive, is that you've established that you're not trying to harm them.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. The primary purpose of figuring out a why is there's a reason they believe what they believe.
Right.
It didn't just happen. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Everything that we believe is shaped by something.
Right.
If you think the government is out to get you,
There's a
something
purpose.
happened.
Yeah.
Something happened somewhere
Right.
where you lost faith in that. If
They
you think-
arrested your daddy.
Yeah. If you think the government is there to help you, same reason.
Yeah.
Maybe, a government dependent lifestyle is all you've ever known, and the people that claim to hate the government have always treated you very poorly. For whatever reason,
Right.
your ideas were shaped by something, and I genuinely want to know what those are.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't, it's, again, and I think that we'll probably retouch on this often because it's so true. It's got to be genuine. Everything you do has got to be genuine. You can never fake a position to try to get to another position and think that it's going to come across as genuine. That's manipulation. And a lot of people manipulate, and there's probably people thinking right now, "Hey, some people are good at manipulation. You can do that." I'm telling you, you will always be found out.
Yeah.
You will always be found out,
Yeah.
because there are so many different things that play into being genuine. This is the initial conversation. You may fool them there,
Right.
but when they look into your character, they watch you, they keep up with you, and all of these things, man, you're going to get found out.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
They're going to figure out that you weren't the
Yeah.
person that you presented yourself to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm asking you why, because I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know. And here's the other thing. I'm not above learning.
Right.
Maybe I don't know everything. Maybe you've got some information I don't have. Maybe there's a reason that I should or shouldn't send my kid to public school.
Right.
We have to have the conversation. I've got to be genuinely interested in your information, not listening to respond, listening to hear.
Right.
And I think that the Y does such a good job of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have to have an open mind, which is kind of what you're saying about hearing to hear instead of hearing to respond.
Yeah.
You're talking about like listening to somebody and learning from them.
Yeah.
Maybe. But we've got to hash it out first. We've got to get the information on the table before we can dissect it. And so that's something I see a lot of people do differently than I do, or you do, which is they'll have a conversation with somebody to try to convince somebody of something. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I just want to see your point. I want you to see my point. And that's it.
I'm a believer in planting seeds.
Yeah.
And the good seed will take.
Right. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility to make sure it takes with you. That's the other thing. And so we got to get that out of our head. It's like it's our job to fix everyone's mindsets.
Right.
It's our job to plant good seeds.
Yep.
And I hope that they do take, but it's definitely not my job to make them take.
Dude, that is so interesting that you say that, because literally Friday, 2 days ago, I was having a conversation. One of our mutual acquaintances called me and asked me about a job, and I told him no, I'm not going to help you get a job with me, and he was very upset. I mean, he was trying to hide it. He was upset.
Sure.
And but I wanted to be honest with him. I don't think this is what's best for you. Mm-hmm. This is not the right choice for you. And you can be upset with me if you want, but I'm going to do what I think is best for you, regardless of how you feel towards me. And so I don't know why that came to my mind. Tell me why.
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of reasons, but mainly when it comes to not trying to force them to understand, and I think that's where I think that's the point you're trying to make. Is that you did what's right, and it's not your job to make them understand why.
Right.
But you did something that was good for them. They may never appreciate it.
Yeah.
They may never appreciate it.
Yeah.
But you still did what was good and what was right in your own eyes. Now, a lot of people hate that because they're like, who is Joe to decide what's good or right for me? I'll tell you who Joe is. Joe is the person who received the phone call for help.
Yeah.
That's who Joe is.
Right.
What I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean? Like, we want to remove that from the situation. Now, Joe shouldn't decide for the stranger that he doesn't know. Absolutely not. But for his friend, who he knows the qualities of and what he does well, what he doesn't do well, how he responds to certain type of leadership, how he responds to certain type of work hours. If this is ultimately going to hurt more than help in the long run, then I think that it's more than fair in that scenario as a friend to take a precaution and say, hey, look, I just really don't know that this is going to be the best thing for you.
Yeah.
Now, I would probably leave them the option to say, hey, look, if you want to bypass me and go talk to, my superior,
sure,
you're welcome to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be the one who puts you in this position.
Right. Yeah, which is exactly what I said. Like, hey, you can put in an application, but I don't care. Like, it's, but as far as me doing it, like handling and doing all the legwork for you to get you on, no shot. Yeah. And I also have to look out for the company. Like, is this guy going to be what's best for my boss? Like, do I love and care about the people I work with? And to put them around this guy, and so I think a lot of people make one-sided arguments based on emotion.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you hit the nail on the head by saying, do I care about my boss? Do I care about my work? Is this best for the company? Because the deal is, it's like we have such it's such a clouded perspective of what we should do for our friends.
Yeah.
Right. Because the deal is, it's like there's so many people I love. I have a lot. I say, let me retract it just a hair. I have a lot of acquaintances and people that I care about. I care about my acquaintances. They're not just people I know.
Yeah.
The deal is it's only a real small group of people that I would say are truly my friends.
Right.
That's not to exclude anyone. It's just, to me, friend is a much more intimate word than people.
Right.
People use it as.
Yeah.
And so when you say like, I work also at a rehab, and I counsel people who are in, difficult situations trying to get their life back. And so many times, a lot of the situations they ended up in was because they did something for a friend. And it's like, we just have a very clouded view of how the lengths we should go. Because the deal is if it's bad for you, if it's bad for them, or it's bad for, the organization, like that's 3 really good reasons not to do what you did.
Right.
Each of them are great reasons individually.
Yeah.
And if you can couple them with each other, you got a really strong reason to pull back.
Right.
But society says that, do this for me, then we're not cool. And it's like,
Yeah.
I just find such a flaw in that
Yeah.
because, you know, I've also had instances where I wouldn't hire people that I loved
Yeah.
because it's like, you don't benefit this company.
Right.
If you don't benefit this company,
You're a
then
liability.
You're a liability, exactly. And if you're a liability, then when you fail, which ultimately you probably will, because you're not a benefit,
Right.
and I'm going to have to fire you.
Yeah.
You understand? Like,
Right.
so I hired you. I'm also going to have to fire you.
Yeah.
And when I have to do that, it's going to sever our relationship.
Yeah.
You know? And that's just one possible negative outcome.
Right.
There's a laundry list of them, you know?
Yeah. Sure.
It could be that I get fired for hiring you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's like, if this is what he thinks is valuable, clearly he has no understanding of what we need here. Or it's like, do I want to, you know, have someone in upper management at my facility that's only here to bring his friends around?
Right.
You know, you got all kinds of different things like that.
It's
You got
tough.
to make sure that the people you bring around are bringing value and longevity.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's
That's tough.
it's a difficult one.
It is.
It's a difficult one. I get it. Yeah. So, you know, for me, it's figuring out the why, establishing your motive, and really nailing down that, you know, common ground that you do have. Because you got a little bit of common ground with everybody. And a lot of times I use extremes to communicate that common ground. And
Right.
just, I guess, to show people that, hey, look, we're not so different.
Right.
We're not so different. And so,
Like, what's an example?
yeah, I was literally, I'm about to give you just a ridiculous example of that, you know. So I'm mostly a carnivore. I really enjoy eating meat. I eat very few vegetables. If I do, it's just for some extra flavor. Like, I
Right.
like peppers and stuff like that. But you know, somebody else might be a vegan, right? And they're talking.
We both love animals.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, man, we both very much love animals. Or I might go the polar opposite way and try to trap them in some just ridiculous logic.
Where they hate animals.
Yeah, for different reasons. Or you're like, oh, so you think that it would be better? And this is me asking, that everyone who did eat animals would just die?
Yeah.
Or do you think that would make for a better world?
Right.
And you're like, well, no. It's like, okay, well, hey, cool.
Me too.
I also don't think that all the vegetarians should die. So here we are, common ground.
Right.
We think that each other should
We're
live.
friends.
Yeah, and it's silly, and it's almost always humorous.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, but it works.
But it makes them smile. It makes me smile, and we're able to have a conversation where we realize, like, hey, look, we're not out to get each other here.
Right.
You know? And so, yeah, that's kind of
I like
kind
that.
of the intro course to me for communicating with people the different value systems. Do you have anything else to add, or you feel pretty good in that?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify the question a little bit. You know, we talked about it a little bit, but when we say like people with different value systems, this is generally comes up in a conflictatory manner. Anyways, we're
Just
arguing.
in conflict, yeah.
Yeah, it normally comes up in some type of conflict where there's anger or animosity. Just in my particular, because I'm not out there looking for people with different value systems.
Yeah.
When I do get approached with the different value systems, it's often because something has clashed.
Yeah.
It's often because something has clashed, and so normally, like with what you're saying, with the with like bringing a little bit of humor or a little bit of extreme, normally if you can make somebody laugh in a situation where they're engaged in conflict, even if it's just verbal conflict, if you can make them laugh, you've successfully disengaged the conflict. You've
disarm them.
Yeah. You've lowered defenses. We're not mad at each other. We're laughing now. You know, and that's a really good skill to have if you want to have good conversations with people.
One of my favorite things, because I do want to move on, but I have to say this. One of my favorite things to deal with is, especially as a Christian male,
Right.
you know, which is very controversial.
Right.
White Christian straight male, as
Cisgendered, I think, is
I have
the
no
appropriate term.
I have no idea, but a lot of times I'm dealing with people with different religions and have conversations with them and stuff like that. And a lot of times I'll open up the conversation. It's like, okay, look, can you get me into your heaven? Like if I, dude, you know what I mean? Like if I miss this,
Right.
What can you do to get me into it? You know what I mean?
If I'm
And
wrong.
that is an extremely obviously,
Right.
I'm not fearful of that.
Right,
You know what
right,
I mean? Nor are they.
Sure.
You know, but that's such a disarming comment to make before you have a conversation like
Yeah.
this. I just want to know, like, what are my chances based on what you know about me?
Yeah.
What are the odds I get into your heaven?
Yeah.
The cool thing is pretty much everybody's like, oh, you're good.
Yeah.
Yes. You're having like
I mean-
8 or 9 heavens right now, dude. So there's a couple of them that's a no go. A couple of them are not happy
For sure.
with what I do.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it seems that I will get into most afterlives. The next thing that we get asked a lot, I've been asked over the years, is that people come up with like, hey, look, I really want to be a leader, but I have no idea what that even looks like. You know, how do I begin to grow as a leader if it's something that I've never done, I've never had a role as a leader. It's just nothing I have any experience with. What would you say is kind of your first step for somebody who's wanting to I don't even want to say test the waters of leadership, because I think that they truly are trying to invest in it, but
Yeah.
they're trying to begin the journey of leadership.
Yep, I think the first step is to read Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willings.
Mm.
I think it's your very first step to becoming a successful leader.
Why that book? I
uh,
assume you've probably read multiple books in your life. You were a big reader, were you not?
Yeah.
Still are.
Yep.
Why that book then?
That book, to me, frames leadership very well. It frames the entire scope of leadership. So I don't think there's a leader out there who couldn't say that they use, like, a good leader uses every aspect of this book. And it's not like every leader in every different situation, right? So the leader of a church, the leader of a business, the leader of a team, right? A sports team. Every single one of those leaders can use this book as a guide. And so it's very versatile in its application. That's the wording.
Yeah.
And it's got some really strong principles in there. It's got some very strong principles. Extreme Ownership, as it says in the title, is one of them that I think is super good.
Give me the rundown, because I've read the book also, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100% that it is probably the best first step. You know,
Right.
I got my own thoughts and reasons as to why. But give me just kind of your most basic explanation, nothing
the book?
complicated, of just what is extreme ownership?
What is that principle?
Yeah, what is the principle of extreme ownership?
Yep. So the principle of extreme ownership is taking responsibility for every possible aspect that you can take responsibility for. That means every single one of your interactions with people is your fault.
Mhm.
That means everything that's ever happened to you is your fault, in a sense. Everything that you deal with on a day-to-day basis is on you.
Mhm.
And it's like, how much can, like, the willingness to take ownership, if you're looking at a graph,
Yeah.
your ability to influence situations is directly correlated to the amount of ownership you're willing to take. So as the amount of ownership you're willing to take goes up on a graph,
Mhm.
so does your ability to influence a situation.
Yeah.
And so if you're not willing to own it, you have no influence over it.
That's good. That's good. Now I want to make a clarification. Joe's not saying every negative thing in your life that's ever happened to you is your responsibility.
Correct.
I realized, growing up that, it's something that you've had, something I've also experienced, like childhood trauma and stuff like that. He's not saying like, oh, what were you wearing at the time? That's not what he's saying.
Were you a cute kid?
Yeah, that's not what he's getting at. But he's saying as a leader, you have to take ownership of whatever happens, because ultimately, if you are the one in charge, if you were the one who had the final say, then whatever happened does fall within your scope of responsibility. And the more of that you take, the more influence you have with your people, because it frees them up to be able to make decisions confidently without feeling like they're constantly on the chopping block.
Right.
Because they know they have a good leader who loves them and cares about them and is going to take responsibility. But what it does is it actually, through that principle, makes them start to take more ownership as well, because they see, if you give a task to a subordinate and you're like, hey, look, I believe in you, come up with a plan, execute the plan. They bring you the plan. You're like, hey, look, man, I think that that's a great plan. And then in the execution of that plan, something goes horribly wrong. And then when you both have to talk to whoever your superior is, you're like, hey, look, I'm the leader. I'm the one who okayed the plan. And you take full ownership of that, dude, that subordinate of yours has never loved you more than in that moment. And he is going to do everything, or she, that they can to be the best employee that you've ever had.
Right.
Because they see that in you, and they're gonna take ownership still. But on their own terms.
Yeah.
It's different when they take ownership versus like, hey, look, man, this was really on you. I know I said it was on me, but really it was on that. No, that's not good.
Right.
They need to recognize like, hey, no, look, I'm the one who did this. I'm the one who failed to do this. I
Right.
didn't think about this.
Yeah.
And that's a good place.
Yeah.
When you're fighting over whose fault it is,
Mhm.
but it's because you're both trying to take the blame.
Yeah.
That's a great place to be as a leader.
Yeah.
And so I think that you explained that very well.
I have a funny story about that. I was working the other day, and one of my guys, he broke something, and the guy over us at the time, it wasn't our boss. We were working with somebody, and he comes to me. He goes, "Joe, who broke this?" I said, "We did." He said, "No, for real, who broke this?" I said, "We broke it." I'm in front of everybody. My subordinates are right there listening, and he's grilling me. But for real, though, I know y'all broke it, but who did it? I said, "We did it." He said, "When you say we, I'm going to assume you did it." I said, "We did it." I would not back down from "we did it," and so that does something that people are like. I'm safe with my leader. I feel safe, and I feel like I can do things right, because if I was like, this guy did it right here, he would not want to do anything else. He doesn't want to try to he just got blamed for break. Sure, he did it, but
now he's going to be overcautious.
Right, and not produce anything. I want him to be productive. Hey, that's my fault. And truthfully, I do believe it's my fault he broke that.
Yeah.
Right? I should have mitigated the risks or done something differently to you have a point?
Yeah, we're back to being genuine.
Right.
You can't pretend to take ownership.
Yeah.
You have to actually believe
Right.
that it was your responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, no, dude, I'm with you. I think that's wonderful. Extreme ownership to me, that's a perfect resource for someone who's beginning in leadership.
Yep.
I think that Joe did an excellent job just saying that it really encompasses the whole scope of leadership. Here's what I love about the book, because even if you're a strong leader, it's a great book for you. Because I had been leading teams for a while when I encountered this book, but it did two things. One, I learned a ton. You're going to learn from extreme ownership, but also it's going to affirm a lot for you. The things that you're doing well, it's going to affirm them,
Right.
and it will articulate them in a way that maybe it's something that you've done,
Right.
but you didn't exactly understand why you did it or why it was so wildly successful.
Yeah.
But he will articulate it in a way where you're like, that's it.
Right.
That's why that works.
Yeah.
And so when you understand the internal mechanism of something, it makes it easier to reproduce.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that what extreme ownership has done is, in addition to teaching me a ton of things about leadership that I did not know, it also reaffirmed the things that I didn't know and taught me the internal mechanisms of those things to where I could reproduce them more effectively than I could before.
Right.
And so, I'm huge on that. My biggest advice would be just plug yourself into valuable resources. Extreme ownership is a great one, but who do you want to lead like?
That's a good one.
Those are the people you need to be listening to.
Yeah.
We talked about at the end of the last podcast. I would love to lead like Jocko Willing. I'd love to have the tenacity of Tim Kennedy.
Right.
The heart for people of a John Lovell, and the relentlessness of a Goggins.
Right.
So I plug myself into those resources.
Yeah.
And it continues to reshape my mindset, and then behind all of that, to say that I want to have the leadership style that Christ had, where he, even though he was the one who deserved everything, that he made himself the servant of people.
Right.
It was a servant leadership model, where when you're the one in charge, it's not do this for me.
Right.
It's what can I do to make you more effective.
Right.
Everything he did was about equipping people You know? Not just his disciples, but he's continually equipping us today.
Right.
You know what I mean? Dude is a servant.
Yeah.
Even today as king, still the servant.
Right.
And equipping us. And so, to have all of that, those are the sources you plug yourself into, is the people that you want to be like. So figure out who those people are. Figure out what resources you have to learn from them and dive headfirst into that.
So I got an interesting question for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, pulled up here. Got 12 principles from extreme ownership.
Okay.
And I want to know which one's your favorite.
Okay.
All right.
Are you going to read them?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay. Number 1, extreme ownership.
Yeah.
Right. No bad teams, only bad leaders. That's a good one to me. That one's a good one. Number 3, believe. I don't know. I'd have to reread. Check the ego. Remember that one. Cover and move. Simple. Prioritize and execute. Decentralized command. Number 9 is plan. 10, leading up and down the chain of command. I think that's important. I think that's super important. Number 11, decisiveness and uncertainty. And number 12, discipline equals freedom.
Of all of those, man, there's so many good things in there.
Dude,
There's so many good things in there. As a matter of fact, can I just go on the record and say that the no bad teams, only bad leaders is my favorite portion of that book.
Yeah,
by far.
Yeah, I love that part.
Oh, it is amazing. I'm not going to spoil it. It's good.
That is good.
It's good. But I think that none of it works without discipline equals freedom.
Wow.
I think that you have to understand that. I don't know if we talked about this before. We have so many conversations with so many people. I want you to understand this. If we ever repeat ourselves, I want you to understand why we repeat ourselves. The conversations that Joe and I are having right now with you, the viewer or listener, are conversations we have every single day with people. We are discussing leadership, masculinity, health, and spirituality on a daily basis over and over and over again. So if we repeat ourselves, I apologize. It's not something we're trying to do, but these are the core tenets of our life. I mean, this is what we believe to our core.
Right.
And so these are the things we're constantly talking about. And so when it comes to discipline equals freedom, you think that, discipline to people is viewed as like structure almost.
Right.
And so for people, you could slightly rephrase it to say that structure equals freedom.
Right.
Right. Which is not what Jocko means. It's not what I mean either. I'm just trying to paint a picture for you. But that's how people view discipline.
Okay.
Is as structure.
Right.
And so you're telling them that more structure equals more freedom, and they
don't understand.
They cannot wrap their head around that.
Yeah.
And it's not that more structure equals more freedom. It's that the more disciplined you are in life, the more you're able to say no to.
Right.
The more you're able to say yes to. You know what I mean? You're always going to be a slave to something.
Sure.
You're always going to be a slave to something. We've got to get rid of the mindset. I think it was Paul that talks about, he was a slave to sin, and then he was a slave to righteousness. But he stayed a slave.
Yeah.
He stayed a slave.
Yeah.
In his own mind.
Yeah.
But the reality is that, and somebody said to me one time, they were like, because we were talking about, eating right and health, and they were like, I just want to be able to eat a cupcake at a party. And I was like, you can eat a cupcake at a party. I eat lots of cupcakes at parties.
Right.
But you also have to be able to not eat a cupcake at a party.
Right.
And that's the thing
that's tricky.
That they didn't understand. It's like, it wasn't that I was a slave to my structure and I was so disciplined that I didn't have the freedom to eat a cupcake. That's what they believed.
Right.
But what they didn't see is they couldn't tell the cupcake no. They didn't have the discipline to be able to choose.
Right.
I could have a cupcake. I can not have a cupcake.
Right.
I can do either one.
Yeah.
I have the discipline to.
Right.
So I now have the freedom of choice.
Yeah.
They did not have the discipline to say no.
Yeah.
Their only option was to have a cupcake, which to them feels like freedom.
Yeah, and it's not. It's slavery.
But it's slavery. It's slavery to a totally different thing. And man, that is just it's an impactful thing to me. And that's why I think that without the understanding of discipline equaling freedom in your life, I think it is very hard to apply any of the other stuff.
Yep. No, this is very off track. So sorry about that. But I was running yesterday. 60 minutes of zone 2 cardio. Anyways, I was running yesterday.
Humble brag.
And And, for about 30 minutes, I was preaching to myself, kind of like a sermon, or whatever. I don't know how to describe it. Anyways, but what I was thinking about was how a lot of people think the answer to all of our society's problem is a hard reset. Let's factory reset this thing.
Yeah.
That way nobody will be slaves, right? But they tried that. Like God tried that with Noah.
Yeah,
Said
about
Moses.
about to say the flood.
Yes,
Yeah.
we tried a factory reset. That doesn't work. You cannot factory reset your way into freedom. Jocko says discipline equals freedom, and I'll say you cannot factory reset yourself into freedom.
Yeah. There's a time period that it takes, man, to rewire something.
Yeah, neurologically.
Yeah, and rewiring anything, even not neurologically, is hard work. Yeah.
You ever try to rewire a trailer?
Yeah, I don't mess with wires because that's for that exact reason.
It's tough.
You know what I mean? That exact reason. I'm getting into way more than I'm capable of.
Right.
Yeah. And so, but rewiring a person, that's more my speed. But you got to understand that, like, dude, you're signing yourself up for a lengthy process.
Right.
A lengthy process of a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
Of a lot of failure.
Yep.
And but that's part of the rewiring process is going through these difficulties.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you can't go through these difficulties, you're not rewiring anything. If you don't go through the difficulties, then nothing has been rewired. You just stayed away from all of those topics, and that's why, like, our rehabilitation program is 7 months long.
Mm-hmm.
The one that we have, and you can't fully rewire yourself in 7 months.
Sure.
It's a
good start.
It's a really good start.
Yeah.
But there's so many people that have come and they're there for like 3 months, and they're like, "Hey, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. I figured it out." And it's like, look, I would be way more comfortable if you were leaving here saying, "Hey, I think I'm off to a good start."
Yeah. Right.
But to say like, "Hey, I have reached fulfillment. I have reached completion. I'm perfected in all of the rewiring of my, I've been here for 3 months. I've totally rewired the 50 years."
Right.
It's like we got to be honest with ourselves. There are still things. I'm much better than I used to be, and I believe that spiritually I have been perfected.
Right.
But there are definitely some physical patterns and things that I'm still getting better at, still working on, and still, really making war with. But it's not war as in like, oh, am I gonna win? Am I gonna lose? It's not like that.
Yeah.
I'm 100%.
I'm gonna win.
Yeah, I'm 100% gonna overcome it. I just call it making war because you have to make hard choices.
Yeah.
You gotta tell yourself no when you want to say yes, and you gotta say yes when you want to say no.
Yeah.
And it's not fun.
Yeah. I completely, at first, when the very first time I heard the story of Jacob wrestling with God, I thought, this guy's an idiot. How would you wrestle with God? And now I've had a couple of wrestling matches with God, and I broke some things, and now I realize like where Jacob, or is it Jacob? Yeah, where Jacob was coming from. Like, I'm trying, like, we gotta, like, I know God's gonna win, but I still gotta fight it, and I know I'm gonna win. I know we're both gonna win the wrestling match, but we still gotta fight this thing out, and
I know what you're saying, but just for clarity's sake, God would Dutch roll you in a wrestling match. I just want to go.
He might break my hip.
I just want to go on the record and say
he's gonna bless me.
That I believe that he will.
I won't let go till he blesses me. I also think, man, something that you said was you're gonna fail, and I agree 100%. And Proverbs says it's not like, not to quote Proverbs because I'm not that smart, but it says something like, it's not about your failures. It's about how you deal with the failure. And so sometimes I get punched while we're sparring, and everybody gets punched while sparring. Yeah. There's not a single person in the world that's sparred more than twice that hasn't been punched. Yeah. And it matters what you do when you get punched, right? Me personally, I'll step in, and so I see myself a lot. I see a lot of my personal characteristics in that when I do something wrong, or whenever I do get punched or make a mistake, or something happens to me, I'll press into that. I'm like, why did this happen? How can I fix it? What can I do better next time? And so to me, getting punched is an opportunity to step in.
Yeah, and that's the old Rocky Balboa quote. it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. You
That's
know?
a really Russian sounding quote.
Yeah.
I think that's how the Russian Spetsnaz train I've heard that before. They train them to take more punches, not to punch better.
Yeah, it is a valuable mindset. You know, I love I won't let go till you bless me.
I do too.
And I think God loves it.
I do too.
You know what I mean? Like a relentless pursuit of Him.
Yeah.
He's for that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He's for that.
I remember one time I was like, God, I'm gonna fast and I'm not gonna eat until you bless me. You know what I mean? We're just gonna have it out.
And then an hour later.
I'm like, thanks for the blessed God. You've blessed me with all this food.
Man, that's all I've got for right now on kind of what you should do to begin that leadership process. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add, or anything else that was
Dude, I know we're trying to go to the next question. I do have one more thing I want to add.
Okay.
I just noticed. I wrote, put yourself in places where new groups are starting. Right? If you want to step off into leadership, you can't do it with a group that's already established. You can't, or I guess you could if you're strong enough. You could
oust the one in charge.
oust the leader and become the leader. But most of the time, what you're going to want to do is find a new group that's starting, whether that's at your church, at your sports place, or your gym.
At your sports place.
Your
Yes.
sports place. Yeah. I like to work out and I like to train. I'm not a big sports guy.
No, I think that's solid advice. Now, it can't be done by saying, hey, I noticed there's no established leader, so I'm the alpha.
I'm the leader. Look at me. I'm the leader now.
I'm going to go ahead and eat the liver of this animal.
Why do you drag a dead animal into their church group and start eating the liver?
Yeah. I'll be leading the small group next week.
As you all can tell.
No, I'm with you though. I think learning to lead that's a really good avenue to do it. Put yourself in positions where you can learn to lead, and in established groups, what you want to do is practice that principle of leading up and down the chain of command. Learn how to develop influence when you're not the one that has the final say so.
Right.
And
Yep.
so different situations call for different parts of leadership, and so.
I think that's a good practical advice.
100%. Spiritual question for the day. Something we've been dealing with a lot. Something that I have I don't want to say a vendetta towards. It gets messy for me though. Question is, how should spiritual men deal with feeling overwhelmed?
I want you to answer that first.
Yeah. So to me, I think that the most important thing that I could say before we dive into any of the hows or how-tos or anything is this. As your relationship with the Lord grows, I believe that feeling should dissipate. I think it should become less.
Okay.
God has been nothing but faithful to me over the years. And dude, I've done some dumb stuff.
Yeah.
Like, even recently.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I've done dumb stuff very recently. Like, super, what were you thinking kind of stuff. And he's still unbelievably faithful.
Wow.
He always has been.
Yep.
And so, what am I feeling overwhelmed for?
Right.
How am I letting myself get to this place?
Yeah.
And so that's the difficulty I have. Now look, man, you want to talk about areas I get pushback? Here's one.
Yeah.
Here is one. Because people, to a degree, want to maintain the right to be hurt and overwhelmed. They want to maintain that right.
Sure. Victimhood?
I don't even know that it's as deep as victimhood. I just think that, I've been to pastor conferences where the whole pastor conference was about, I'm talking days of a pastor conference where the whole pastor conference was about how to be okay. And it's like, well, these are our leaders.
Right.
What is happening? What is happening? I'm not saying there aren't extremely difficult moments in pastoring and in leadership and your spiritual. Yeah, there's extremely difficult moments, but to get to a point where you're not okay anymore,
right,
and somehow you've lost faith in sight of God, ultimately being for you and in control and wanting good things for you, and that's dangerous to me.
Yeah.
It's dangerous to me. And so, I think that would be kind of how I would lead it. It's just to say that, like, I think that it's all a matter of perspective, and I think that if you're feeling overwhelmed, you've got to attack your own perspective of the situation. You gotta look at it through His lens, not through yours, from an eternal lens.
Yeah.
Not through the very, very temporary lens that you're seeing it right now.
Definitely.
You know, and so that's the big thing for me, man. And like, mind you, I'm saying this out loud. We might lose the majority of our viewership from me making this statement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, be it that they hear this is the first podcast, they'll cut it off and never listen to it again, or if 10 years from now they discover this, they're like, these guys are. I'm not a fool here.
Right.
I'm not a fool here. I'm telling you that I believe in God. I believe in Him more than I believe in whatever I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Whatever the circumstance is.
For sure.
You know, it's nothing more than that.
Right.
It's not me being better.
Yeah.
It's not me being more equipped. It's none of that.
Right.
I truly believe that He's bigger than the situation, and I keep that perspective on my mind. So
Right.
when the situation happens, and I'm just like, oh God, what's happening? I'm like, okay, what am I not seeing here?
Right.
I'm missing something.
Yeah.
You know, and if you can get yourself to you know, take the deep breath,
Right.
look at what you're missing, you can very easily step out of that overwhelmed feeling.
Sure. Yeah. I think.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think you just hit on a super important part. Is that like that feeling of overwhelmed is psychological, but it's also a physical. You know, you said take a deep breath and step back.
Yeah.
Like that's a very physical response you just said to a spiritual question.
Yeah.
You know, and I think like literally the first thing I wrote down when we talked about whenever this question came up was the physical response, right? I'm super spiritual. I care about spiritual, and I care about spiritual so much that I've realized your physical body is connected to your spirituality. The way your physical body acts is a direct link to your spiritualness. And
I agree.
And you know, people will argue with me up and down on that. That's fine. And but I believe it. And the first thing I do when I realize I'm overwhelmed is I take a large deep breath through my nose, and then I pause with the deep breath held, and then I let it out. You know, and there's tons of ways to do breathing exercises. That's how I like to do it. And what that does is it sends a signal to your body that it's time to relax. It's time to not be stressed. And when you take a step back and look around, Jocko talks about this in Extreme Ownership, actually, like lifting your head up in the middle of a conflict. Like look around,
Yeah.
right? Like obviously don't look over the trench. Maybe don't stick your head up all the way over the trench, but you know, like pick your head up and look around. Let's see what's going on. And I think that is like psychologically there's something there. You know, psychologically there's something there, looking around and like seeing the fullness of your situation and seeing how God is so much bigger than that. So, you know, that song, the worship song, I may feel like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. Like, dude, our feelings or our problems can feel like they're just surrounding us, like there's no escape. And we can if we can look past the problems and we can see that God is surrounding the problem. Like the massive problem we see, you know, the biggest problem we could fathom.
Yeah. Look at it like a bullseye. There's you in the middle. There's a ring around you. That's your problem.
Yeah.
But then there's a ring around that problem that is God.
Right.
You know?
God is
like
bigger.
if you shoot at Him,
Yeah.
I will collapse you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like there's,
Right.
yeah, He's for you, man.
And then I think of like in 12.2 trillion years, right? When I've been in heaven for a good minute, you know, and God's like, you know, I don't even remember this, but God's like, hey, remember this? You know, like, I'm like, no, I really don't remember that. That was 12.2 trillion years ago.
Perspective.
Right.
Perspective.
Like,
yeah, no, I agree. And here's the thing, like, if you are in an overwhelming situation,
right.
I'm about to speak straight to the heart of this man.
Right.
I apologize if it gets you canceled. If you are in an overwhelming situation, the odds are you got yourself there. You didn't follow God there.
Sure. Yeah.
Can I say it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you were in something that you have lost the ability to contain, the odds are that you did this on your own accord.
Okay.
You did not follow him there.
Yeah.
Now, people try to cite like biblical stories and all this kind of stuff.
I was
It's
about
like,
to start.
Oh, God sent such and such here, God such and such, and He handled all of it.
Right.
He handled every single aspect and every single detail. And so, if you believe in those biblical stories, then you should believe that just like in all the biblical stories, that God comes through.
Yeah.
You know, and so like all of the stress and everything that you're going through, this is
Right. God comes through.
Yeah, He comes through. So believe the story all the way.
Yeah.
Don't just believe the beginning of it.
Right.
Now, but I'm saying things such as like a financial stress, right? There are times where I get myself into a financial bind,
Right.
and I'm like, man, I did not need this right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why did I ever decide to do this to begin with?
Right.
You know, is this something I really like sought the Lord after? And every time it's like, nah, I just did it.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't.
Sure.
I don't even know that I
don't even think I
I don't think we discussed this a single time.
You know, I pray a lot, but I don't think I pray about this.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those things, man. It's like the times that I felt personally overwhelmed, it was always things that I did on my own accord. All the things that He's asked me to do, which have also gotten me into, I've been in some situations
Right.
that were because of things that I was obedient to the Lord in.
Yeah.
I never worried about those. I never worried about them. Even when everything was like collapsing.
Right.
I'm like, there were situations that you and I discussed, we won't get into like the details of it, that I'm like, hey, look, Joe, we're doing this right now. It's going to fail. It's absolutely going to fall apart. And soon.
Yeah.
And soon.
Yeah.
But God's doing something right now.
Right.
And He wants me to do it.
Yeah.
And if you wanna be in, like we can do this. We can go hand in hand on this one,
Yeah.
And we both jumped in, knowing all the while exactly how things were going to happen, and I never worried. There was never any stress. It wasn't. It was sad. It was sad.
Yeah.
But it was never stressful.
Right.
It was never stressful. It was never overwhelming, even though some really difficult things were having to be done.
Yeah.
And it's because it's like, I knew walking into this, like God communicate. We communicate.
Right.
And it's like, this is gonna be a mess.
All right, fine.
It's like, cool, we can do that.
Yeah.
I don't mind the mess. As
Right.
long as I know why I'm getting into it,
Sure.
And
I feel like we did accomplish a purpose there. Even though it failed.
that's still playing out today.
Sure.
Still paying dividends.
With the people involved, with the people who seen.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, and those doors are continuing to open, and
Right.
like we're seeing the greater purpose move
Manifest.
in even a mightier way than I anticipated. You know what I mean? How
Right.
far moving and how far reaching
Yeah.
that has been and continues to be.
Right.
And so like I'm thinking that in 10 years those connections will have become a primary portion of my life again.
Right.
Because of the things that God develops through a lot of those situations, which is awesome to me. So you talked a little bit about physical response.
Okay.
Maybe I missed it, but what is the physical response that you kind of go through, like when you feel overwhelmed?
What is the physical response to this? Like, what does your body do when you're feeling overwhelmed? Or are you saying, what do
Just
I
like,
do to
what-
mitigate that?
What is the process? Like, I mentioned a deep breath and you referenced it. So, like, are you
Okay.
What's that look like? For
Yeah. So for me, I if I'm just feeling like particularly stressed, this only happens if this has to be a really stressful situation for me to go to this lengths. But different people's stress is activated at different spots. So we can all take 3 minutes, set a 3-minute timer. Everybody's got a phone. Set a 3-minute timer on your phone and take deep breaths for those 3 minutes. That'll generally put you in a state of calm. That'll put you in your physical body anyway, in a state of preparedness and eagerness to deal with the situation. The other thing that I mentioned was lifting your head up and looking around. And so if we're looking around, and as we're taking our deep breaths and we can relax ourselves, and this is going to sound like super Tai Chi or whatever the wording is, but I find myself that when I center myself, which sounds weird and it sounds overly like a hippie, but I find when I center myself, I can often overcome any feelings of stress that I'm feeling.
So that leads me to a question I had for you when you referenced it earlier. You said that you get a lot of pushback on the physical spiritual connection. What types of people typically push back on that?
I'm trying to be gracious here to these people.
Okay. Is it people who tend to not take care of themselves physically?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
That was my assumption, but I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
These people also tend to be Christian.
They tend to claim they're Christians.
Okay. The reason I asked is because that's something you and I've never discussed.
Right.
As far as like we've never had that question, and we had a conversation about it. But I wanted to ask to see if it was the same.
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
The people who don't take care of themselves physically absolutely wholeheartedly reject that there's a connection to the spiritual.
Yeah.
Because then you're telling them that
Yeah.
they're not taking care of themselves spiritually, and they will not have that.
Right.
The other thing is, the reason I think that it's Christians is because there's so much emphasis on this in other religions. Meditation is like one of the most common practices in the entire world.
Wow.
Which is a physical, spiritual
Connection.
connection.
Right.
And so I don't want to say it's exclusively Christian, but it's close.
Yeah.
It's close to exclusively Christian. And I had not considered that
I didn't
until you said that.
Yeah.
And I started spinning on it in my head, and I'm like, my God, like even the like atheist or like people that have like I'm calling them obscure
Right.
because
Like
they're obscure to
Buddha.
me, right?
Yeah.
Spiritual views all believe in a spiritual and physical connection.
Right.
They all believe they're intertwined. Like they're sitting there lining up their chakras or whatever it is.
Right.
But
Playing
they're
with
doing it
crystals.
as a spiritual and a physical combination.
Right.
And then here we are as Christians claiming,
Zero. Yeah.
claiming deity, and like, no, can't be related.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Do you know
It's like
yoga?
while you're simultaneously the temple of the living God, but hey.
Yeah. Yeah. It literally says your body is a temple. Like, yeah. Did you know that yoga was actually a religious practice? And like at its core, it's supposed to
I
be a
believe I've
religious.
heard that
Yeah.
before, and then it got demonized hardcore for
Sure.
a little while there.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a yoga guy myself. I
Mhm.
don't particularly have any qualms with it or
Yeah,
anything
I know you
like
hate
that,
stretching.
but I don't stretch.
I know you don't stretch.
I do jujitsu. I get stretched.
Yeah.
It's different. It's different.
Yeah.
No. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, dude. I think that is one of the biggest things we miss as Christians today in the church. Is,
That connection.
Huh?
That connection.
yeah, that physical, spiritual connection. There is definitely something there. You were made as a three-part being. You were made spirit, soul, and body, right? And so for you to completely cut off 1/3 of that gift that you've been given,
Try
right?
to isolate it.
Yeah, and try to say this isn't part of the gifts God gave me. God gave me a soul and a spirit. It's like, hey man, I want to achieve everything God has. I want to experience the fullness of God,
Yeah.
right? And I believe that a lot of times we try to cut off 33.3% of
Sure.
our gifting from God.
If I have the potential to be this strong,
Right.
I want to be that strong. If
Yeah.
I have the potential to be this intelligent,
I wanna be that.
this
Yeah.
intelligent, that disciplined,
Yeah.
that humble, that
Right.
whatever. I want to reach the fullness of whatever He created me to be.
Right. Same.
And I'd hate to. I think Goggins has a weird story about it at the end of his Can't Hurt Me book, but
Which is coming out with a new book this month.
he is. But he talks about like the list of everything that like he could have accomplished. Like meeting God and there being a list of everything he could have accomplished,
Yeah.
and then realizing this is all he did.
Yeah.
But it's like God's like, this is the potential I created you with.
Right.
This is what you did. And
Yeah.
It's like, obviously, I don't think that that's actually going to happen, and I don't think that he does either.
Right.
But
Imagine.
it is interesting to think about the fact that like God created you with such deep capabilities.
Right.
So competent. He created you so competent. So
Yeah.
for the people out there that are like, be honest with yourself. You're incompetent.
Yeah.
God didn't create you that way.
Sure.
He created you awesome, and I believe in that version of you.
Yeah.
Let me just say that.
Right.
My hope is to be a small part of the journey that helps you get from where you
Yeah.
are to what He created you to be.
Right.
Dude, I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. You might be the missing piece of my crew.
Yeah.
You know? And so I'm always trying to build this just unbelievable group of people, you know? And dude, you might be the one. You
Right.
might be the one we've been looking for. And
what I think is so interesting about something you're saying is that people assume because I don't agree with you that I don't want what's best for you. Dude,
yeah.
I want what's best for you probably more than you do. Like I want what's even the like. I'll say this: the people I find the most annoying, and the people I don't like the most, the people I don't want to hang out with, I will do more for that person than most people would do for their own family.
Yeah.
You know, I will go out of my way for the person I dislike. Like the person I don't even like really care to be around, I will literally get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go help them. You know, like
I've seen you do stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know you're telling the truth.
yeah. And so I just sometimes people get confused or misinterpret that. I'm not going to help that person.
Yeah.
I'm going to help that person more, maybe.
Well, the reason they're doing it is because that's what's true in society.
Right.
You know, if you disagree with people, you're certainly not going to help them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm a Republican, you're a Democrat, or I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, so screw you.
Right.
Like, no, that's not how we feel.
Yeah.
It's not how we feel at all.
Yeah. Liberals love me.
Yeah.
As they say.
It's genuinely not how we feel, man. We love people. We want the best for people. And the deal is, if I truly believe that the way that I'm living is the best way, I want you to see that.
Right.
How can you see that if I'm
Hate
away
you.
from you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's not a good thing. Not to mention, now I'm somebody who's filled with hate.
Right.
And it's like, that's not me either.
Right.
Like, I'm actually not mad at you at all.
Yeah.
And so
Jesus ate with sinners.
Yeah.
You know, Jesus and eating back then was like a big thing. Eating meant like you're
There's intimacy.
yeah, you're friends with these people. It's not like today where you eat with anybody and be cool. Jesus ate with sinners. That's like saying, I'm trying to think of a correlation for today.
Something that intimate.
Yeah.
It'd almost be like having someone stay at your home.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
it'd probably be that.
Probably be that.
You don't just let anybody stay at your home.
Right.
You gotta trust them.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of that. That's why it was such a big deal to the Pharisees who he was eating with.
Right.
You know, it
That's
wasn't
why they talked about it.
Because, like, I mean, dude, today's world, it's like I could just be in McDonald's
And
and there'd be sinners around. You know what I mean?
And I'm eating with
And
them.
somebody walk in and like, hey, how are you eating with sinners? It wasn't like that.
Right.
It wasn't a we happen to be in the same place.
Right.
It was
We went out of our
this
way.
was intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so no, I agree with you. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that I said when it comes to the overwhelmed feeling, you have to remember that your success as a Christian is obedience, not results. Your
That's important.
success is in saying yes when God said do something, or saying no when He said don't.
Correct.
It's not about the results.
Correct.
The result is wholly up to Him.
Yeah.
And so if your only success is obedience, you don't feel overwhelmed.
Right.
Because it's like, did I say yes when He told me to say yes? Yes, I did. Okay.
Right.
All right.
I'm done.
Now,
Yeah.
you may feel some type of way if that's not the case.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, but that's what I was talking about earlier. If you end up in that situation, it was likely brought on by you. You know, it was likely because He said no, and you're like, I'm going to do it anyways.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Which
God
will
said,
let you.
God said, hey, don't go buy a new house right now. And you're like, we got the money, it'll be okay. And then you do that, and then the market collapses, and everything goes crazy, and now food is $1 million,
Right.
and you don't have anything, and you're like, I feel overwhelmed. And it's like, well, God told you not to do that. You know?
Right. God was
He's
fine.
not, and He's not punishing you. He
Right.
didn't make all that happen because you disobeyed.
Right.
It was gonna happen. He was trying to keep you from
being
dealing
in that
with it,
spot. Yeah.
you know. And so,
Food is $1 million these days.
yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. That's why I'm getting smaller.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Andrew's put on like 30 pounds.
Yeah,
20 pounds?
since February, I think I put on 32 pounds.
Yeah. At least 24 of it's got to be muscle.
Yeah, close. I'll take half. It's fine. Whatever. Yeah. Trying to get as strong as He made me.
So I guess we're at our last question now.
Yeah.
Should men diet?
That's a good, healthy lifestyle question that I think is pretty common, but it's it's kind of got its nooks and crannies that don't really get explored enough, in my opinion. And so when it comes to diet, I hate the word.
I also
despise the word
Yeah,
diet.
don't like it.
Because like
Won't
the
use it.
very word implies temporary.
Yep.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
like the whole word itself is like, I mean, that's the label.
Right.
This is not forever.
Right.
You know, so no, in that sense, I absolutely disagree that people should diet. What I think you should do is I think you should have goals,
Right.
things that you want to accomplish with your life. I think that those goals come with a food source or food sources that you should definitely eat, you know, which can be different for different people. You know, there are things that I think are primarily beneficial for most people, but there are exceptions.
Sure.
So
You wouldn't tell a lactose intolerant person to drink a whole lot of milk.
yeah,
for example.
I mean, like, yeah, you should go dairy only.
Yeah.
That would be silly, even though, dude, I pound a lot of milk.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean? And so, and you know, you got different people with different type of, you know, internal stuff going on that react poorly to different foods. And, you know, we got a guy at our church that is it pork, like he can't even be around it. You know, I think maybe like red meat in general.
Really?
And like he gets really sick. And so like, you know, no, we're not telling that guy like, hey, look,
Eat
fight
steaks.
through it.
Yeah,
You know,
you just
fight
eat a
through
steak.
it. You just gotta bear
You
it
gotta
down.
eat like 6 steaks.
Yeah.
You'll be good.
Yeah, and so you know we're not saying across the board there's one particular answer, but I think that what's important is that you have goals. You select your food based on those goals, and you eat in a way that's genuinely sustainable.
Yeah.
Like something you can continue to do.
Yep.
And listen, keep learning.
Right.
Keep learning. Don't just say, okay, hey, look, I googled this paleo diet.
Yeah.
That seems to work for a lot of people.
Right.
And so this is what I'm going to do. It's like, keep studying.
Right.
Keep studying. Somebody said to me the other day that, because, you know, I've been gaining all this weight. That's changed the way that I was eating. I'm like crushing protein.
He accused you of steroids?
No, but I eat like over 2 pounds of chicken a day.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg of,
Right.
of what's been going on.
That's the
So-
start.
And so I was telling you, I was like, man, I'm just so frustrated that it took me so long to figure out, you know, how well my body responded to this.
Right.
And they were just like, this is like the 10th time that I've heard you say like, I figured it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, no. I never say I figured it out.
Mm.
Never said I figured it out. But what I do is I do trial and error with things. Like if I read a source from, you know, people I trust and people that clearly are getting results that I'm after, because those are the people I'm listening to,
Right.
and they're like, hey, only eat squash.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just gonna say that's stupid. Dude, I'm gonna eat squash for a while.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we're gonna put it to the test.
Yeah.
And so there's been at least 10 times in life that I've tried something and seen extremely good results from it. I'm like, this is now a staple of my lifestyle. you know?
Right.
And so it's not that I figured it out. It's that, hey, I've added another chapter
Right.
to this book. You know what I mean? I've added another cause and effect to another. I need this result. Here's how you
Here's how you get it.
And
For sure.
and so yeah, continue learning, continue challenging yourself, continue experimenting with different stuff. You know, obviously don't do anything that's like dangerous, but also don't believe everything you read. You know what I mean? Because like there's so many people out there that are like, if you eat any red meat, you're gonna die of a heart attack when you're 7. And it's like, God, come on now. You know what I mean? Like there are plenty of people who obviously would argue the opposite.
Yeah. I being one of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, and so, yeah, just don't do anything stupid, but also don't believe everything you read, man. Feel free to maneuver some and take some, I don't mean risk like with your life. I mean, take some risk as far as, you know, just going against the grain of what everybody says. And look, go get some labs done.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not that expensive to go get labs done.
Right.
And just like, you know, eat away for a month, go get some labs done,
See
check
what-
on it, make sure that all your stuff is good, go
Right.
back 6 months, a year, and just, you know, keep track of stuff like that's important.
Yeah.
You know? And if you're seeing some negative, then change some things.
Right.
But don't just like, because such and such told you, or there's one Google article
Mm.
that said that your kidneys will fail if you eat 300 grams of protein, or, you know what I mean? Just like,
Right.
check.
Yeah.
You can check on stuff like that.
What I think, man, is like I agree with you 100%, and I think that diet is a stupid word, but I think that knowing your body is an important part. Like just being able to understand what part of your body you need to listen to and which parts you need to be like, well, you know, like when I eat bad, I feel bad. Like I feel good in the moment. I feel really good.
This is delicious.
Yeah, this is great. Like let's get like 6 more boxes of foot rounds because one wasn't enough. But then later on, like during the day, I'm like, dude, why do I feel bad? And I'm like, oh yeah, I just ate a box of foot rounds.
Yeah.
And so there's that, and like you said, I hate the word dieting. I think it's stupid. I think you're always going to want to cheat. You're always going to want to stop. You're always going to wonder, when can I stop doing this? And so I think what I like to talk to people about, and I had a guy do a keto diet for a while, and he was so ready to get off. And but anyways, I like to tell people this: let's change our lifestyle. Like let's do a lifestyle change. Like let's find a new normal. Kind of to use modern vernacular. Let's eat protein. Let's get rid of the crap and add in meat. So I've got wrote down. Also found this statistic you might find interesting. You ready? 65% of dieters return to their pre-diet weight within 3 years. So it's not like diets even work, and so
35% of dieters don't.
Right. Like I'm starving right now. I'm probably about to go eat.
No, I'm with you, man. It's a clear distinction that most people return to their original state. I was listening to something the other day. I don't remember what show it was or what podcast it was. It might have been the Mind Pump guys. I can't remember. But he said maybe if you'll stop eating food that's marketed to children, and I was like, and he was, everybody laughed, and I was like, my God. That is, you know what I mean? Like if your diet consists of fudge rounds, chicken nuggets, and pizza rolls,
right?
You know what I mean? Like watch a commercial for those. Like you're eating children's, like you're trying to fool kids. And
you're in it. Yeah.
So look, that's not saying you can't have fudge rounds sometimes.
Right.
I have fudge rounds sometimes.
Yeah.
By the way, fudge rounds, you want to sponsor us? Like, hey,
we're not gonna eat them.
You know what I mean? Like, we will sit a fudge round on the table and not eat it every episode.
I would say something else I wanted to say about dieting is that for me personally, what I've figured out just in my own life is that the closer I can get to minimal processing, the better off it is for me. And so the processing industry, the food industry, wants to sell us hyper-processed food.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what's best for you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what's best.
And that's
for
true across the board. There's not even an argument for that.
Yeah.
Like, we will not be willing to hear arguments on processed food being better for you.
Yeah. At no point do I think that you'd be better off eating super hyper processed food, and especially the marketing where it's like this is healthier for you than natural thing. I'm gonna stay away from that. I've stayed away from all plant-based proteins. Yeah. Just because I'm like, there's a couple of things. The bioavailability of the amino acids in the plant itself is not as good as meat. And so, well, I want what's optimal. I don't want what's popular. I want what's optimal. And so,
yeah. And to remember this, everybody's trying to make money. Right. Yeah. Everybody's trying to make money. Yeah. So, like. I've got a family member that works for like one of these large like wholesale food kind of companies that moves
like a Cisco kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. And they were just telling me about like how horrible the mislabeling of products is, and it's like it is immoral the way that they like you can label something as sugar free.
It's got sucrose.
Well, no. Like there can still be like up to a certain amount of something in it. Wow. You know what I mean? And it's like, it was something like crazy, and this isn't exactly right, but it was this drastic. It's like you could label something carb free as long as it was less than 50% carbs.
Wow.
And it was like, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so you get to label it as having none, even though it's literally up to 50%. And they were like, yeah, it's insane. And so it's like you think about those things. It's just like, dude, they are trying to sucker you in any way that they can.
Yeah,
because that's how they make money.
Yeah,
that's how they make money. And the love of money is still the root of all evil. And so and I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
And so and now you make the argument. Well, why are you and Joe doing this podcast? Well, we're not making any money, but even if we were, you got to understand that we don't love money.
Right. That's not why we're doing it.
Yeah, we don't love money, and
I'll use money
yeah,
as a tool.
sure, but to love it is a negative thing. And
Yeah.
so don't believe in resources from people who are trying to make money off of you.
Right.
You gotta be careful with that, man.
Yeah. If I loved money, I wouldn't be making podcasts.
Yeah. For sure.
So there's also that.
Especially podcasts that are gonna make a lot of people dislike us.
Right.
And so
I would say things like
so far after 2 episodes, I would say we've offended a large portion of the world.
yeah.
And so
Congratulations.
but because we love you, because we want to see you be your best self.
Yeah.
You know, not just for the sake of being rude.
Yeah, we'll let Andrew Tate handle that.
That's about all I got, man. You got anything else you want to add?
We just got new sponsors.
Yeah, man. Jocko,
Yeah.
Kennedy, Goggins, Lovell, Craig.
Who's
Every-
Craig? Oh, Craig.
Craig, Shipworks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything they're
I'm
doing,
on Craig.
everything they're doing, I'm for.
Yeah.
And keep rocking with them. What you got, Joe?
I got Huberman, Jordan Peterson,